Welcome to our deep dive into AI and project management. It seems like a lot of you are curious about how AI is changing the game for project managers. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. We're diving into Project Management Reimagined, pulling out all those practical tips you can actually use on your projects. And don't worry, whether you're all about Waterfall Agile or somewhere in between, we've got you covered.
Yeah, the cool thing about this book is that it doesn't try to force you to pick a side. It acknowledges that both Waterfall and Agile have their own strengths. Waterfall, is formerly known as PMBOK.
Okay, so PMBOK. That stands for Project Management
Yeah.
Body of Knowledge, right? It's like the go-to guide for traditional project management,
Yeah.
the structured waterfall approach. And then you have Agile, which is all about flexibility and adapting to change.
Yeah.
But I'm still a little fuzzy on when is each one the right choice for a project?
Yeah, good point. Waterfall is really best when you've got those super clear requirements up front.
Yes.
Think about building a bridge. You know exactly what you're getting from the start. It's great for predictability and detailed documentation.
Makes sense.
Mhm.
And Agile is better for projects where things are constantly changing, like software development.
Exactly. Agile is like a chameleon. It can adapt to those shifting landscapes. Software development is a perfect example. Customer needs and the market are always changing. So Agile helps you stay nimble. You iterate, adapt, and constantly improve as you go.
Got it. So where does AI fit into all of this? I'm seeing AI everywhere in project management these days. Is it really a game changer?
It absolutely is. The book really dives into how AI, specifically generative AI or Gen AI, is like adding rocket fuel to both Waterfall and Agile. One of the key concepts they highlight is prompt engineering.
Prompt engineering, is that like coding for AI? I'm not really a tech person.
No worries. It's actually way simpler than you think. Imagine you're talking to a really smart assistant. You need to be super clear with it about what you want. Prompt engineering is just about giving the AI those crystal clear instructions.
So instead of just asking it to write a report,
Hmm.
I would need to tell it exactly what needs to be in that report.
Precisely. And the book gives this really handy framework for writing those effective prompts. It's the 5 W's. Remember those from school? Who, what, when, where, why? And they even add how in there.
The good old 5 W's. Never thought they'd be useful for talking to AI. Okay, I'm intrigued. So give me an example. Like if I'm struggling to draft a progress update email, how could prompt engineering help me out?
Let's say you need to send that email to all your stakeholders. Instead of just asking the AI to write a progress report, you'd use the 5 W's to give it all the context. You tell it who the email is, for what specific information it needs to include, when the project started, where things stand now, why certain things might have happened, and how you're addressing any challenges.
Okay, so it's like I'm giving the AI all the pieces of the puzzle, and it puts them together in that email format.
You got it. And here's where it gets really interesting. The book actually shows how even small changes to how you phrase your prompt can lead to totally different outputs from the AI.
Wait, really? So how I ask the question really matters?
Absolutely. It's all about giving the AI the right amount of detail and direction. Let's try a little experiment. Imagine we ask the AI to write a project status report for a software development project. What do you think we'll get?
I'm guessing we'd probably get a very generic, maybe even boring report.
Most likely. Now let's try a more detailed prompt using those 5 W's. You are a project manager working on a new mobile app. Write a progress report for the stakeholders highlighting the key achievements of the past week, the current roadblocks, and the planned next steps. The project is due to launch in 2 months, and the budget is currently at 80%.
Oh, wow. That prompt feels a lot more specific. I bet we'd get a much more targeted and helpful report using that. So it's like I'm teaching the AI how to think about my specific project.
Exactly. And the better you get at crafting those prompts, the more value you're going to get out of AI.
So it's a skill almost like learning a new language. Like you said before, this is really making me rethink how I approach even those simple tasks like writing emails or reports. But what about those more complex project tasks? Can AI really help me with those?
You bet. And we're going to dive into that next, along with some real-world examples of how project teams are using AI to get some pretty amazing results.
Okay, I can't wait. This is already blowing my mind.
Let's talk about those more complex tasks.
Yeah.
The book goes a step further than just basic prompts. It introduces this thing called the CREATE framework. It basically takes prompt engineering to a whole other level. CREATE stands for character request, examples, adjustments, type, and evaluate.
Create?
Yep.
Okay, that's a lot to unpack. It sounds kind of intense.
It might sound a bit intimidating at first, but it's actually a very logical approach to building super specific prompts. Imagine you're like a director working with an actor in a play. You wouldn't just tell them to act. You'd give them a character to play, tell them what to do, show them examples, make adjustments, specify the type of scene, and then you evaluate their performance.
Okay, that analogy actually makes a lot of sense. So walk me through how create would work for an actual project task. I'm still wrapping my head around all of this.
Sure. Let's say you're managing a software project and you're about to kick off a new sprint. You're using Agile, of course, so you got to plan that sprint. Instead of just asking the AI to create a sprint plan, you'd use create to build a much more powerful and specific prompt.
All right, I'm ready. Impress me.
Okay. First up, you define the character. In this case, it could be something like, you are an experienced Scrum Master. Then you have the request. This could be something like, create a sprint plan for a 2-week sprint that focuses on developing a new feature for our e-commerce platform. Next, you can add in some examples. This could be, here are some examples of user stories from past sprints that are similar to the ones we'll be working on for this sprint.
Oh, so the AI can learn from what you did in past sprints. That's pretty clever.
Right. And then you'd specify any adjustments, like the team has 2 new developers who are still getting up to speed. After that, you'd define the type of output you want. Maybe you want it as a table or a bullet point list. And finally, you could even ask the AI to evaluate its own work, like make sure the sprint plan follows the I invest criteria for user stories.
Hold on, invest criteria. You're losing me again.
Oh, right. INVEST is an acronym. It basically helps make sure your user stories are high quality. It stands for independent negotiable, valuable, estimable, small, and testable.
Got it. So the AI isn't just spitting out some random generic plan. It's actually taking into account all these nuances and best practices. That's pretty impressive.
Exactly. And the book actually walks through a case study of an enterprise infrastructure migration where they used Create to build prompts for tasks like data validation and risk identification. It's really interesting.
Okay, so we're talking about like migrating a company's whole IT infrastructure to the cloud,
Right.
right? That sounds insanely complicated.
Oh, it was a huge project. They had to move tons of data, make sure there was no downtime, and coordinate with all these different teams across time zones.
Yeah.
But by using Create to build these super targeted AI prompts, they were actually able to streamline the process and spot those potential risks before they became major issues.
So AI isn't just for those small everyday tasks. It can handle those massive complex projects too. This is really making me rethink what's possible with AI. But with all these different AI platforms out there like ChatGPT, Microsoft, Copilot, Google's got their own AI stuff. How do you even know which one to pick? It's a bit overwhelming.
I hear you. It's like walking into a candy store with a million choices. The book does a good job of breaking down those different options and helping you figure out which one makes the most sense for your needs. It really depends on a few factors, like what kind of project you're managing, your budget, your organization's security policies, and even just what you personally prefer.
So there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Nope. But one thing that really stood out to me in the book was its focus on security and compliance. It's easy to get caught up in all the cool AI stuff, but you can't forget about protecting that sensitive data.
Right. Especially with all the data breaches happening these days. It's a real concern.
For sure. The book actually gives some specific advice on data sanitization. It's a fancy way of saying you need to remove any personal information from your data before you give it to the AI.
Okay, so it's like scrubbing your data clean before you let the AI see it. Makes sense. But this is all still kind of theoretical. Can we make this a bit more real? Like, what does an actual day look like for a project manager when they're using AI and all these prompt engineering techniques?
Let's paint a picture. Imagine a project manager starts their day. They open up their laptop, and instead of going through tons of emails and updates, they use a prompt to generate a quick summary of everything that's going on. It's like a personalized news feed for their project.
Oh, so they're getting that snapshot of like who's working on what, any roadblocks, what's on the agenda for the day. That's super handy.
Exactly. And let's say during their daily stand-up meeting, one of the team members starts to kind of take over the conversation. Instead of letting the meeting go completely off track, the project manager can subtly use a pre-written coaching script that they generated using, you guessed it, an AI prompt.
That's sneaky. I
Yeah.
like it. So they've got these little AI-powered tools ready to go to help keep things running smoothly.
It's all about being prepared and having those strategies in place. Now imagine that same project manager has a meeting with the project sponsor later that day. They walk into that meeting feeling super confident because they used AI to generate the meeting agenda and even some talking points about the budget risks and key milestones.
So the AI is like their secret weapon, helping them stay organized and look super professional. But what happens when things go wrong? Like a new risk pops up or they discover a dependency they didn't know about. How can AI help in those situations?
That's actually where AI can be super valuable. They can quickly use a prompt to generate some really targeted questions to ask at their next meeting with the stakeholders or the development team.
So they're not just reacting to those problems. They're actually using AI to proactively figure out the best way to move forward. This is making me realize that AI isn't just about automating tasks, it's actually helping you think more strategically about your project.
Exactly. And let's say their team just finished a sprint that didn't go so well.
Oh.
Instead of dreading that sprint retrospective where they have to figure out what went wrong, they can use an AI-generated facilitation guide to make things easier.
Wait, AI can help with those tough conversations and team dynamic stuff too. That's incredible.
It can. The AI can actually suggest different interactive techniques to help the team uncover the root causes of the issues, reprioritize tasks, and come up with clear action items to prevent those problems from happening again.
So it's like having a virtual coach guiding them through those tricky situations. I'm definitely feeling inspired to up my AI game after this.
And we're honestly just scratching the surface here. Think about using AI to write those personalized coaching scripts for team members who might be struggling or to create stakeholder engagement plans. The possibilities are honestly endless.
Okay, so AI can help with a ton of different aspects of project management, from those basic everyday tasks to those more complex challenges. But I'm also wondering, are there any downsides to using AI so much? Like, could we become too reliant on it and lose some of those essential human skills that are so important in project management?
That's a really good question. And thankfully, it's something the book addresses. It's all about finding that right balance between human intelligence and AI assistance.
Right. We don't want to let AI take over completely.
Yeah.
It should be a tool that helps us do our jobs better, not replace us altogether.
Exactly. And we're going to dive into that balance along with some more incredible real-world case studies of how companies are actually using AI to get some really amazing results in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, I'm ready for those real-world case studies. You mentioned companies getting amazing results using AI in their projects. Let's hear about them.
Okay, let's kick things off with a company that took on this huge enterprise infrastructure migration. They had to move all their data centers over to the cloud. This was a global project with crazy tight deadlines and a ton of pressure to avoid any disruptions.
Wow, that sounds super intense. It's like doing open heart surgery on a company's entire IT system.
Yeah, the stakes were really high. They knew they needed a rock-solid plan, so they started with those classic PMBOK processes. Especially for planning and risk management, they wanted that strong, structured foundation.
That makes sense. But did they stick with a purely waterfall approach? Given how complex cloud migrations can be, I'd imagine they needed some of that agile flexibility too.
You're right. They actually used a mix of waterfall and agile. For certain things like networking and security, they set up those phased milestones that are typical in waterfall. But for application testing, they use those iterative sprints that agile is known for.
So they adapted the methodology to fit the different parts of the project. That's pretty smart.
Yep.
But where does AI fit into all of this?
Okay, here's where things get really interesting. They started using AI-powered tools to speed up certain tasks, like data validation. Instead of manually checking for errors during the migration, they used AI to analyze everything and flag any inconsistencies.
So they're using AI to basically boost their efficiency and make sure things are accurate. But wouldn't that require a lot of technical expertise to set up?
Not as much as you might think. The tools are becoming a lot more user-friendly these days, even for people who aren't super technical. Plus, they had some experts on hand to guide the process and help them understand the AI's results.
That makes sense. It's not about replacing human expertise. It's more about using AI to make that expertise even better.
Right.
What else did they use AI for?
They used it for risk identification. They basically had AI scan through mountains of system logs and documentation from their vendors to try to pinpoint any potential risks. It would have taken humans forever to go through all of that manually, but AI can analyze those huge data sets in a fraction of the time.
That's amazing. So they're using AI to identify risks early on, giving them more time to plan and avoid those problems. I can definitely see how this can be a game changer for these large, complex projects. But what about smaller teams? Those startups that are all about agile. Can they benefit from using AI too?
Absolutely. Let's look at this case study of a startup that was building an e-commerce platform. They had a really tight deadline to launch their MVP, their minimum viable product, and they were working in those 2-week sprints with a backlog that was constantly changing.
Okay, so pretty classic agile setup. Did they incorporate any PMBOK elements into their process at all?
Yeah, they did create a basic risk register and a stakeholder register just to make sure they were covering those essentials, but their main focus was on those rapid agile sprints.
Makes sense. So how do they actually use AI in their workflow?
Yeah. They used AI to help them refine their user stories. So instead of having to start from scratch every time they needed a new user story, they could basically query the AI using patterns from their previous previous sprints. It helped them avoid having to reinvent the wheel every time, and it made the whole process a lot faster.
Oh, so they're using AI to learn from their past experiences and work smarter, not harder.
Hmm.
That's awesome. What else did they do?
They also automated their daily stand-up summaries. As soon as the stand-up meeting was over, the AI would generate a nice, concise summary with all the key points and action items.
Oh, that's brilliant. It saves so much time and makes sure that everyone's on the same page. No more trying to frantically take notes during the meeting.
Exactly. And because they were able to free up so much time, they were actually able to launch their MVP ahead of schedule. It was a huge win for them. And the developers were really happy because they could focus more on coding and less on all those administrative tasks.
That's a great example of how AI can empower Agile teams to work even faster. But what about those projects that kind of fall in between Waterfall and Agile, the ones that need more of a hybrid approach? How does AI work for them?
Don't worry, we've got a case study for that too. Let's talk about this multi-region R&D project. This research division had labs all over the world, and they were all working on these cutting-edge materials for new products.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a logistical nightmare. So many different teams and moving parts to coordinate.
Oh, it definitely was. They needed to figure out a way to manage this complex project while still allowing room for all those frequent changes and those unexpected twists and turns that always come up in R&D.
So how did they strike that balance between structure and flexibility?
They ended up going with a hybrid approach. They had a central PMBOK-style governance structure to oversee the big picture. But each individual lab was able to use agile sprints to manage their own experiments.
So they basically combined the structure of Waterfall with the flexibility of Agile.
That's cool.
And how did they use AI to support this hybrid model?
AI actually played a key role in data analysis and task allocation. They were using AI-powered tools to analyze all of their experimental data and highlight any unusual patterns or trends that the researchers might have missed.
So they're using AI to cut through the noise and find those valuable insights faster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And because they were using AI to generate those real-time status reports from each lab, the project manager was able to get a really clear picture of the overall progress and then shift resources as needed to keep everything on track.
That's incredibly efficient. It's like having this bird's eye view of the entire project at all times. So they're using AI to make smarter decisions about resource allocation and keep the momentum going.
Right. And the results were really impressive. The scientists were able to focus more on their research because AI was helping them with all that data analysis. And the whole team was able to collaborate more effectively thanks to those clear, consistent updates from the AI. It minimized all that confusion and kept everyone on the same page.
These case studies are so fascinating. They really show how AI is transforming the way we manage projects. But what are some of the key lessons learned from these real-world examples?
One of the biggest takeaways is that AI is an incredibly powerful tool, but it's not meant to completely replace those core project management methodologies. Whether you're using Waterfall, Agile, or a hybrid approach, you still need that solid foundation in place.
So AI is more like an enhancement to our existing processes, not a complete replacement.
Exactly. It's about using AI to improve your current skills and processes, not throwing everything out and starting from scratch.
That makes me feel a lot better about incorporating AI into my work. What else did these case studies show us?
They highlighted the importance of data-driven decision-making. By using AI to analyze all that data and generate those insights, project managers can identify risks, bottlenecks, and opportunities much faster than they ever could on their own.
So it's about using data to make smarter, more strategic decisions.
Exactly. And ultimately, that leads to better results, happier stakeholders, and a more efficient project overall.
These are all fantastic examples of how AI is making a real impact in project management. But I'm curious, where do we go from here? What does the future hold for AI and project management?
The future is looking really exciting. We're already starting to see all these new AI capabilities emerging, like predictive analytics, which can help you forecast potential problems before they even happen. And natural language processing is advancing really rapidly, which means it's going to become even easier for people to communicate with AI.
So AI is going to get even more powerful and even easier to use. That's amazing. But what about project managers? Will they still be needed in this future where AI is doing so much?
Definitely. I actually think the opposite is true. The role of the project manager is going to evolve, but it's not going away anytime soon.
So how is the role of the project manager changing then?
As AI starts taking over more of those routine tasks, project managers will have more time to focus on the things that humans are really good at, like strategic thinking, innovation, and building those strong relationships with their teams. They'll become more like leaders and coaches guiding their teams to success.
So it's less about managing all those individual tasks and more about managing people.
Exactly. And those are skills that AI just can't replicate. It's all about that human touch, empathy, communication, and the ability to inspire and motivate your team.
This has been an incredible journey. We've explored the basics of AI and project management, dived into those advanced prompt engineering techniques, and even got a glimpse into the future of this exciting field. It's clear that AI is here to stay, and it's going to continue to change the way we work and manage projects.
The possibilities really are endless.
That's a wrap on our deep dive into the world of AI and project management. We hope you enjoyed this exploration and that you walked away with some practical ideas to try out on your own projects. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, happy project managing.